Hi, everyone. This is Megan.
And this is Steven.
And this is the Synchrony Podcast, where we talk about transforming apostolic dating culture and ending loneliness in the church.
That's right.
That's right. We are back to drinking coffee at an irresponsible hour after a week off.
Yep.
Happy belated Father's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a whole nother episode.
About what you got for Father's Day?
No, the conversation we have about the social injustice for the celebration of Father's Day versus Mother's Day.
We love our dads and we should do more for our dads. You made out okay on Father's Day.
No, I'm not saying you did terrible, but I'm saying it's one of those things that, like, there's even differences in, like, church expectations. There's differences in, like, family celebrations. And so it's like, I've been noticing it more and more over the years.
Yeah, I could go into arguments about who has to push out the babies, but it's fine. I get where you're coming from.
Okay. I guess all the stay-at-home dads out there can just be thrown into the wind.
All five of you?
Just kidding. All five of you, it's true.
No, just kidding. It is a small but growing club of very, very, very important men. I do think that the dynamic of these, like, parental holidays will change as, like, society starts changing a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because, what are you laughing at now?
I was about to say something that was going to shove my foot in my mouth.
Okay, don't do that. Anyway, do you want to tell the people what you got yourself for Father's Day?
Mm-hmm.
So my gift to Steven, for context, was...
Yeah. This is our gift giving to each other.
Yeah, long-term listeners will get a kick out of this. So Steven is very hard to buy for because he usually picks out what he wants himself, and he does all the research on it and gets the specs on it.
If it's a piece of technology, I don't want you buying it.
I will buy you the wrong thing.
Yes,
every time. Yeah, and you usually want technology.
Yeah. Because
that's sort of your jam.
Yeah.
So my gift to Steven was I gave him $200 to spend on Facebook Marketplace because that is your spiritual gift is Facebook Marketplace.
That's right.
And you operate in it frequently.
Yeah.
And to the benefit of all. But I said, here's $200. You can spend it on whatever you want. I do not have to approve the purchase, and I will make appreciative noises when you tell me how much you saved on the thing that you bought.
And I have pushed the boundaries of the appreciative noises.
You really have. What did you buy?
I bought a Quest 3 VR headset.
Yes. So
it was a little bit more than $200, but I had to pull from my
pocket money.
Yeah, pocket money that I've had throughout the year, and I spoiled myself.
Yeah, so he's been walking around looking like a stormtrooper.
Yeah, something from Tron.
Yeah. Are you liking it though?
It's what I expected Ready Player One to be 100%. It's amazing.
I need to tell you that it looks significantly less cool, but I'm happy for you.
Well, no, it looks less cool in Ready Player One too.
Oh,
like,
okay, good.
That's the thing. Is like in Ready Player One, it's a society of people who have become solely reliant. Like, you work your jobs in VR.
Uh-huh.
And so, like, that's the concept. Is like everyone is like in their like trailers on a VR headset.
Yeah,
and
we're close.
Yeah, we're not far from that.
But it's good. You're having a good time with it.
Oh yeah, it's super cool, and I'm excited to edit this podcast while on VR. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah, so maybe this is our first VR edited podcast. Let us know how it went in the comments.
If it's janky, you know why.
Yeah. So we're actually, so this is an interesting segue. We're drawing from the comment section of YouTube, which, by the way, is a barren desert for us sometimes.
Yes.
Like, shout out to the 3 people who occasionally leave us comments.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. We can see how many people are watching and not leaving comments, and it's fine.
Yeah.
We're not mad.
We ask for like interaction. It's like crickets.
I know.
Okay.
It's okay. But anyway, we appreciate everyone who's listening. But if you are listening to this or watching this on YouTube and you want to drop us a comment, we do read them. And someone dropped us a comment on our last episode. And I thought it was really profound and worth talking about.
Was it a comment or was it an email?
It was a comment.
Okay.
Yeah. So as a reminder, if you didn't hear it, our last episode, we talked about like the fact that marriage doesn't fix you.
Yeah.
Right. And someone commented and basically said, like, is it worth it to get married? Like, people are always talking about how hard marriage is and how hard you have to work and how difficult it is. And we did talk about, like the fact that marriage is work, and we compared it to like a gym, in the episode. So I think it's a valid question, right? Like, is marriage worth it? And we're not talking about our marriage or like, is the concept of marriage in society worth it? We're talking about, is marriage worth it to you? Single person out there listening to it. Is it something worth the challenge of pursuing it and then working through all the difficulties that you'll inevitably encounter when you marry another human being?
It's true.
So what do you think, babe? Is it worth it? Not about us, just in general for
Nah.
people. It's a weird question to ask matchmakers.
Yeah.
You know,
I would definitely say it's case by case. It depends on what your level of need for connection is.
well, and I think it's like, so I think I was thinking about this. Marriage has a unique value proposition, right? And by that I mean, like, there are some things that you can only really get in marriage, like within the context of marriage.
And from a apostolic marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If we're assuming everyone listening to this is an apostolic person who's doing their best to live holy and right. So there are certain things that within scripture, within healthy Christian life, only exist within marriage.
Yeah.
Right. But there are certainly other ways to connect to human, people around you. There's plenty of people who have never married
Yeah.
and have done just fine.
Yep.
Right. So
Paul
is the one we go to. Yeah, not saying his life was easy, but he was single and not mad at it. So cheers to Paul.
And as we've learned, I mean, someone else who is also single is Jane Austen.
Yeah, very different people. Let it not be said that we compared the Apostle Paul to Jane Austen. To a similar problem with run-on sentences between the two of them, though, I have to say. Similar challenges when it came to concision about some things. No judge.
I cannot be a critique of that, so.
Yeah. Anyway. So, I want us to dig in a little bit to, like, if a single person out there is sitting and kind of just trying to do the value calculation of, like, is all this work going to pay off for me? Like, and I've had singles tell me this, like, they have some of our singles are doing well. They're living healthy lives. They're really involved in ministry. They're doing well with their finances. They have a lot of freedom. And they've asked themselves the question, like, is adding another person to my life going to be a net positive thing?
Yeah.
Right. We have the loneliness to deal with. We have the challenges, but all things considered, is bringing somebody else into my life going to be a benefit? And I don't think the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
I
think it's like, I'm not trying to, like, rain on the parade of this episode, but, like, I feel like it's, yes, you're right. It's not always yes. But I think in a lot of cases it is.
Yeah.
Well, mainly because of, like, we are creatures of connection. We are creatures of relationships. Literally, God's whole love story of the Bible is about regaining connection back to his creation. Like, so it's like, I think that there is a massive part of it that I would hope and wish that everyone would have the opportunity to have. But I also know that's not realistic.
You make a good point, though, which is, I do think that we are built for connection. And there might have been points in history and in the church where you could really access a lot of connection without being married, right?
Yeah.
So looking at Paul as an example, right? Paul was in this tight-knit community of believers that were under persecution, right? They were meeting in each other's houses constantly. They were constantly together in prayer. He was going out and ministering, usually with some sort of, like, co-evangelist, right? He formed these intense brotherhood relationships with the ministers that he was around.
Apparently, he was writing a lot of letters to people.
Sure. But, like, he wasn't alone.
Yeah.
He was in this brotherhood that was, almost on this battlefield, right, of the early church.
Mm-hmm.
So his life wasn't devoid of friendship or connection. I think that in today's day and in today's church, it's harder to find those really deep and, like, meaningful and completely transparent human connection opportunities outside of marriage.
Yeah.
And I don't think that marriage should be the only place where we have that. Like, I think that's a different kind of failure
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
our society.
You cannot provide every level of connection I need out of
Right.
people.
Right.
Like, that's just, like, I think that's unrealistic expectations.
Completely agree. But I do think that there are aspects of modern society that would make it very hard. Like, it is difficult for me with my remote job, right, and our 2 young children to form healthy friendships. I
Yeah.
have a handful of very, very, very close friends, right? Maybe only one extremely close friend that I'm talking to on a regular basis. And those relationships are high investment for me right now in the way my life is built. You know,
Yeah.
I spend most of my time on a screen. If I were not married, there would be very few opportunities for me to have really deep, meaningful conversations with someone
Yeah.
that I didn't
And
really.
even then, we have the podcast ahead.
That's why we're doing this, guys. It's
It's really so that we can
completely,
actually talk to each other throughout the week.
This is date night. It's completely selfish motives. Yeah. So, but I mean, I think that's true. So, I
We're
think
kidding, but also not kidding.
no, I think we do enjoy this time together.
No, we do, but it's not
Yeah.
our only time. But it is our only scheduled time to hang out with each other.
It's scheduled and it's like valuable. Like, I feel
Yeah,
like we
yeah,
talk about good things, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes we schedule time to just like zone out and like
Yeah.
watch, you know, The Voice auditions or something.
Yeah, I'm like, how's your day? You're like, great. I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the things about marriage that are unique,
Yes.
right? And how some of them like really don't exist outside of the context of marriage, right? Let's get this one out of the way because everyone's thinking it. Healthy sexuality can only be found biblically within the context of marriage. Please swallow your coffee. If you're listening to this on a streaming source, as I was saying that, Stephen filled his cheeks with coffee like an overcaffeinated chipmunk and was just sitting there refusing to swallow it until I instructed him to. Are you okay now?
Yep, I'm great.
Okay. So what I was saying was healthy sexuality only exists within the confines of marriage,
Yes.
biblically. And like, I mean, let's be real. That's a really difficult thing to just put on a shelf.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are people who do it by choice or because that's their preference,
Yep.
right? Like, not everyone needs to express their sexuality as much as everyone else might. Like, there's varying levels of that, right?
Yeah.
So we're not here to judge anyone who is or is not committed to that being part of their life. But for most people, I think, because of how built in that is to our like biology, that's a difficult thing to just shelve.
Yeah.
For women and men. It's not just men.
Yeah. But something to also go along with this is the like conversation of having biological children.
Sure.
And maybe sexuality is not like the big driver for that, but wanting to have your own children. Because obviously you can have, you can be a foster parent, you can adopt. There's a lot of other ways.
we have single foster parents in our pipeline right now.
Yeah. So, but there is also sometimes a drive to want to have your own children.
Sure.
So.
And, and I mean, I think the world has options for that, right? Like there is things like surrogacy or there is things like in vitro or, using a donor, that kind of a thing if you're a female. But I think that that's complicated for the church, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not here to talk theology about procreation and where life begins and that kind of a thing, but that's not necessarily a straightforward conversation for everyone.
Mm-mm.
So the landscape of that is difficult. And, I think it goes without saying, like, we're a spiritual being, but we're also an animal, right?
Yeah.
And that just mammalian force in us wants to do what humans were designed to do, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. It is a difficult realization for those in the church to say that if I choose to remain single, I will put that part of my life aside.
Yeah. Question for you. Do you think that there are people who say graduate college and say, I want to be single for the rest of my life? Or do you think there are people who try the dating game or try to find someone, don't find someone, and then just have to pray and figure out if they are okay with being single?
I imagine it really varies But I think that there are people who, so I don't think anybody wants to be alone, right?
Yeah.
I think that there are very few people in the world who truly, truly want to be alone. Even people who live lives of relative isolation end up surrounding themselves with animals or like other forms of attempted companionship, right?
Yeah.
And those people are very few and far between. People want to be connected. I think there are people who likely, maybe they're not super romantically inclined and they might not even have a super strong, drive for sexuality, but they crave human connection.
Yeah.
And in our society, that usually comes through the form of a relationship, right?
Yeah.
And then I think you're right. There are people who, for whatever reason, remain single past when they expected to, and they slowly work on themselves to be able to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I think that, and this is a whole nother episode, like at some point we're going to have to talk about the topic of fertility because it is such
Yeah.
a huge conversation in the dating space.
Yeah.
And it is not straightforward.
No, and also like we want to make sure that we do as much research and have as much points of view as possible because it's such a sensitive subject and also something that we don't feel necessarily qualified to talk about.
Yeah, we're certainly not experts in that space. But so I think that plays into it, right? Like there's a point at which, like I've talked to people who have been in what we would call like extended singleness.
Yeah.
And they have reached a point in their life, and this is men and women, right? Where they no longer feel extremely driven to have biological children because of the age that they're at and the stage that they're at in life, right? Regardless of biology, it's hard to go into the baby stage when you're in your 50s, right?
Yeah.
So, like I think people as they move through seasons of their life, they might be more or less okay. And I'm sure it waxes and wanes, right? You guys could tell us this if you're in this, have had this experience where,
Yeah. In our comment section.
right. Like there are probably seasons where it's more difficult,
Yeah.
Medical crises are hard to go through as a single person.
Yeah.
Like,
And I'm sure holidays also play a role into that too.
but I mean, even like longer seasons, not just like sort of things that happen every year, but like if you're a single person who's going through the loss of a loved one, like you're watching your parents decline, that is very difficult to do without a spouse.
Yeah.
And a lot of our singles are in that scenario where they are the caregivers for their aging parents and they're having to face that loss and that difficulty alone.
Yeah. I mean, there's been times that you've said to me, I cannot imagine having to go through this without you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a term of endearment in terms of like trying to boost me up. It was like a legitimate statement of like,
The logistics are just
you're
hard.
like, I don't know how this would work. This would not work if I didn't have you here.
Yeah.
And that's true. I feel the same way. And so like we as a married couple recognize that there are obviously a lot of benefits to being married.
But a lot of the things we're talking about right now are things that you could hypothetically offload to another person in your life or a relative or a dear friend, right?
Yeah.
There are ways to outsource like, help for family members and all those other things. But sexuality and biological reproduction are pretty much only going to exist within the confines of marriage.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing. But it's not the only thing that I think is kind of like unique in marriage. You and I talk a lot about marriage as a tool in the hand of God.
Yeah.
Like, or we talked about it last week, like the sharpening and whatever.
It was 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago. Sorry. So my opinion is that I think it is absolutely possible for God to use other people in your life to sharpen you and hone you and change you.
Yeah.
But that a spouse has a unique ability to do that. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%.
What do you think are the things that make like a relationship with a spouse in terms of its ability to be used by God to change you different than like the relationship with a close friend?
So I think it's layered. Because a close friend that is really, really close, like truly close to you and knows you and you are fully transparent can do a lot of things. But I feel like close friends, you run the risk of them not being around for as long as you would need them for.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think it has to do, and I'm sure it varies from person to person, but I think a lot of it has to do with just duration.
Yeah. So like marriage, like,
Mm-hmm.
right. I have many friends that I would consider know me almost as well as you do.
Sure. Some of them better in some ways.
Yeah. And so, but that being said, because of life, well, because of marriage and because of moving and because of jobs,
Mm-hmm.
we're not able to be as close,
Sure. With those
right?
friends.
Yeah, with those friends. Whereas me and you, with jobs and life and stuff, we move together. We do things together. If
Mm-hmm.
it's hard, we do it together. And
Yeah.
so, like, you see me at my best spiritually and at my worst spiritually. You
Mm-hmm.
see me at my best physically and my worst physically, carnally,
Right.
fleshly, spiritually, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. It's like, I think you have the most rounded perspective,
Yeah.
and same for you, for me, or vice versa. Um, that being said, um, what I think, taking that into account, I think our perspectives from how we were raised,
Mm.
we have, and our experiences are able to truly minister to each other.
Yeah. In a way, I think that marriage brings an intensity to the interaction,
Yeah.
right? Just by nature of like sometimes in consultations, I compare marriage to like a rock tumbler,
Yeah.
right? Which I started watching rock tumbling videos on like,
Oh, I totally would. If I had a workshop, I totally want a corner for rock tumbling. Like,
okay,
it's super cool.
so I didn't realize how long it took.
Oh, it's like months, sometimes years.
Yeah. So in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, you stick the rocks in there for a few hours and it comes out
Mm-mm.
all shiny, shiny because it's just like polishing it.
I
No, no,
mean, you'll
no.
have to reset it and like clean the water and do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Like
it's
they
crazy.
tumble when you watch these rock tumbling videos. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go on YouTube really quick and just search rock tumbling and look at the shorts. It's very satisfying because you see them take these yucky, muddy rocks that have been tumbling together for like weeks at a time out, and they're these beautiful, polished,
Yeah,
gorgeous,
they're
like
gorgeous. Yeah.
gemstones. But I when I first heard of that, I thought it was like a quick thing, right? Like you tumble the stones a little bit and then like they're pretty and polished. No, it takes a tremendous amount of time where that tumbler is just running constantly, constantly turning the rocks. They're constantly rubbing against each other and the substrate that's in there, and it's doing the work of polishing, right?
Yeah.
Marriage is like that in the sense that we are constantly exposed to each other,
Yeah.
right? Like everything that
I
we,
have a lot of rough edges.
ain't it the truth? No, I'm just kidding.
Not just talking about calluses.
No, everyone just got a little bit grossed out, Dave. Like, like,
That's a good way to derail you.
yeah, I know I have to get back on my train.
Tumbling rocks.
Right. Okay.
There you go.
So there it is. Thank you. So just by nature of doing life together, right?
Yeah.
Living in the same house, raising our children together, managing our finances together, eating the same food, being in the same place. It's like putting two rocks in a tumbler. We have no choice but to rub shoulders with each other. And the
Yeah.
context of our life, the difficulties that come up, the challenges that we encounter, which are not because of each other. It is just because life is challenging and hard, like we talked about before. But the fact that we are, like, for lack of a better way to say it, like forced to do that together, right?
Well, yeah, we have made an agreement
Yeah.
that we are going to do this for till death do us part.
Yeah. Like, so
So yeah, we are forced in the moment
Yeah.
when we do not want to be there. Yeah.
there's no out.
Yeah.
Not unless you leave in a body bag.
That's right.
Anyway. So
Attorney.
does not implicate me for anything that happens after this podcast. Stephen's life insurance is not that good. No.
Yeah.
So basically, like, I think that marriage is unique because of the intensity that and just the amount of hours you put in with someone working beside each other, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Well, and that's what
yeah.
I was thinking as well. Is like the difference between a friendship and a marriage is a friendship, you work together on projects, but you don't have to put up with each other
Yeah.
through thick and thin. You choose to in a lot of ways, but you go home to your separate homes most of the time.
Yeah.
And you sleep it off and you don't talk to each other for 2 or 3 days and you come back, you figure it out. Whereas at home, you have to still function. You have to work together. You have to communicate. And so like the force of having to say, hey, we have to exist in life together.
Right.
It really forces that character building. It forces the real analogy of like grace and love
Mm.
and faithfulness and transparency. So like I think that yes, I think you can accomplish a lot of things through a friendship, but definitely not all things.
No, and it's one of those things where like I'm not here to ever say that God can't work a miracle in someone's life and transform them to be what he needs them to be. I do not think that marriage is the only tool that God uses to transform people,
Yeah.
right? But I do think it is a voluntarily intense polishing process that you can submit yourself to that can speed things along for a lot of people, right? Like in
Yeah.
terms of like being married has made me more Christ-like because it forces me to deal with the parts of me that aren't Christ-like, right?
Yeah.
In a way that friendships might not. And there are certainly exceptions to this rule. I mean, there are, siblings and friends who are roommates that are like working together, and like
Yeah.
there's lots of people doing lots of different
There's
things.
people poking holes in our analogies right now all over the
For
place.
sure. So I'm not trying to paint with a super broad brush here, but I think it's worth saying that for most people, you're not going to get that level of intense workshopping from another human being. God can still work miracles. God can change you. I mean, he did it to Paul in a second, right? Like on the
Yeah.
road to Damascus. So it's not to say that it can't happen in some other way.
Yeah.
But for most of us, being in a marriage helps,
Yeah.
with that slow process of getting closer to being like Christ. And I think like, the most beautiful thing that I think we can see is like when couples are at the end of their life together and they've lived a really beautiful life together. So I have, just like to give you an example, I have a friend that I work with who lost her grandparents a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And they were they were very elderly, right? I think they were in their 90s, and they had been married since they were like teenagers and had been deep followers of Christ like their whole lives, right? And they passed on the same day in the same hospital room. And it's very like notebooky, right?
Yeah, sure.
But the story was that like they, one of them started to decline and the other one kind of went into their decline as well. And their last days were spent together, joyously awaiting their time to go to heaven. Like, very, very happily with their family in a way that, as she was describing it to me, it just gave me like, wow, like how cool would it be to finish? I almost imagined like, like the marathon runners that run the race together and finish, they cross the finish line together.
Yeah.
Like how cool would it be to get to the end of your race with the person that has been helping
Yeah.
you go through that and say, look what we did.
Yeah, and they're also defying the odds too.
Right.
Right. Not just dying together, but like also staying married for that long.
Yeah. And just being able to look at the legacy that they were leaving behind and say,
Yeah.
like, to God be the glory, but look what we've done in each other's lives. We've brought each other this far.
Yeah.
Right. Toward Christ. I mean, it was just a really beautiful story. And I know not everyone has that experience, but it was just like, wow, at the end of our life, whenever, no matter the timing, right, of when one of us leaves the world, like we want to have brought the other closer to the throne to a degree. Yeah. And we can't change people, but we can help be supportive to them, right?
Yeah.
You can run beside someone and encourage them to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
So marriage is not the only place where you can find deep companionship, but
I feel bad for her grandparents' parents, because what a bar to set.
oh my gosh, I know.
Like we've been married for probably 65 years,
Right.
70 years, and we also died holding hands together, like of old age.
Yeah, the story is really beautiful. Like,
Yeah. Like, man, how do you compare to that?
yeah, they actually, they died several hours apart, right? This is kind of woo woo, but just go with me because it's beautiful, right?
Yeah, sure.
So they physically died several hours apart, right? But she passed first and went very peacefully. And my friend said that in the hour that she died, her grandfather slipped into a coma.
Oh.
And
yeah.
his body went totally ashen, even though there were still like blips on the heart monitor. She was like, I believe he was gone. Like,
Yeah.
like she felt like they went near the same time. And of course you romanticize things
sure,
when your
sure.
loved ones pass, but it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful idea.
That's cool.
So that isn't to say that there are beautiful ways to live life as a single person.
Yeah.
There are beautiful ways to end, for the end of your life to come around in that state. It doesn't have to be all this notebook story, but it is difficult, I think, to get the same level of true tested companionship that you get in marriage these days.
Yeah.
Friendships are hard,
Yeah. I mean, I think it really comes down to really challenging. It's kind of what we ask people, like, who do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And like, as a part of you being a part of this world, how do you want to impact it?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things. It's hard for me. And I know this, I have a very naive point of view. I have my perspective, my bias.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to imagine impacting the world without having you by my side. I say
Sure.
that we've been married for almost 9 years now,
Mm-hmm.
I think, right?
Yeah. This is 9.
16.
This is 9 this year.
We're in 25 or 26?
We're in 25 because I have,
Okay, yes, 9.
9.
Okay. She
Oh,
also didn't remember, so.
yeah. I'm not judging. Steven and I mutually forgot our first anniversary. Do you remember that?
No, I forgot though.
We were like, wow, look at us. We went and got a cupcake.
Yeah.
It was good.
Also, I have been formally diagnosed with ADHD of all the flavors, so this is now, I feel justified.
Yeah. The Swiss cheese that is our mutual memory bank.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. Okay, we got to back out. So what were you talking about before then?
It's hard for me to imagine impacting the world without you by my side.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like and again, this is my perspective, my bias.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like us working together, our impact will be greater than me doing it by myself.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. You can plow a field with a single ox.
No.
Right. There's only one ox treading out the corn in scripture, apparently. Yeah. But it is much easier to plow the field with 2 oxen.
Yeah.
Right. And if we're talking, again, going back to that metaphor of being equally yoked, you could be doing the same work. You're just going to have to carry more of the load. Yeah. Right.
I feel bad. Like, I feel like this ended up turning into an episode of just like talking about how great marriage is. But it's one of those things. It's like,
are you going to cry?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think it really just boils down to just trying to do an exercise of like whys, the 5 whys of when you figure out what you'd want to do to impact a world.
Yeah.
Do your 5 whys on that question and like back out of it, because it's like one of those things. It's like, I'm concerned. I think there are people who are okay with being alone, not romantically involved with someone.
Sure.
And doing life. But I feel like, generally speaking, those people know that they are okay with that. Or do you think that there's a social pressure to kind of like be at some place?
I think that people live in the gray area where on one day you feel one way, on another day you feel another. Like, true. I don't think it's as simple.
The world's not black and white. So.
No, I don't think it's as simple as one day, you just like, you decide, well, I am now forever single. And like, that is that, We had to take a forced intermission there because we,
that was unfortunate.
Yeah. Our camera SD cards ran out of memory.
Yeah. The IT guy really stinks around here.
IT guy is doing his best.
Hey, to be fair, we are 65 episodes in. That was the first time that happened.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Actually, no, that did happen at NYC.
Oh, that did happen that one time.
Never mind. Second time.
Okay. Okay, that being said, so we were talking about a bunch of different things. I think I had a thought while we were waiting, while you were doing the work, and I was just sitting thinking thoughts. So the person who made this comment asked, like, everyone talks about how marriage is so hard. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
The hardness is part of the value.
Yes.
Like, in the sense that, like, we talked about that rock tumbler analogy. Like, if you are seeking to be more like Christ, if you are seeking to change the world, if you are seeking to crucify your flesh and do all of these things and pick up your cross, all of that is hard, right? Marriage can help you do it better.
Yeah.
I think it can force you through that process faster. It is a more intensive experience of that. And that is part of the benefit.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's, and again, like your spouse is not the reason for the discomfort. Your humanity is the reason for the
Yeah.
discomfort.
That's why we've been saying since we first got married, life is hard,
Mm-hmm.
marriage is easy.
Right.
Like it's one of those things is like if you marry someone with similar values and a similar like viewpoint of like how to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
you just problems will arise, we'll figure it out and we'll
Right.
keep on going.
Right. And I can, you know, I can, as a single person, I could pray and say, Lord, like, make this change happen in me. Take me through whatever you need me to take, you know, to go through to edify me. Right.
Yeah.
I would rather, for me, not, this is not everybody, but for me, I would rather that edification process happen with someone like you. Right.
Yeah.
Like I would rather submit myself to the process of being tumbled with a compatriot, right?
Yeah.
Who has committed to doing it with me. That's right. Who is committed to doing it with me and also reap all the joy of that. And
Yeah.
that isn't to say that there is joy in single life, right? You can find deep satisfaction in single life. I love the types of joy that come from married life.
Yeah.
You know, for me, there is nothing quite as, for me, this is the place where I wanted to access that joy, you know?
I have a little bit of a soapbox I'm
Okay.
about to go on, and I didn't realize I had this soapbox bottling up inside me.
Oh boy.
So I'm going to give a parallel.
Okay.
When you first became pregnant, or not first pregnant, but like whenever we had the baby shower,
Okay.
leading up to your delivery, like leading up to the baby getting here, you were flooded with women coming and trauma dumping on you.
Yes.
Terrible birth experiences.
Oh, it was awful.
And how miserable and hard it was going to be for you. But yet the joy of having a kid is great. You know, and,
Right.
and so it's like, you were like, I don't need, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sure there's some value to what they're saying, but how is that helping me
Right.
in
PSA,
this situation?
don't trauma dump on pregnant ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a bad birth story, I'm sorry you went through it.
Process
but
that with a
don't tell it to a
therapist.
first-time mother.
Right.
Go to counseling.
100%.
But on the flip side of that, it is very, very, very normal, very normal and expected for a husband to complain about his wife. And what I mean by that is
Like the old ball and chain.
yes, 100%. It's the oh gosh, my woman always nags me, or it's the
old lady.
I got yeah, but we make it sound like it's with a southern twang and it's an old guy, but more often than not, I have heard, and I don't see it as common in the church as I do outside the church, but I think the story and the fear is perpetuated amongst society, right? Like it's the fear of marriage, it's the fear of having someone who is going to bother me.
Sure.
It's the fear of having someone who I am not happy with, but I guess I'm tied together with her because if I get a divorce, she's going to take half my life.
Women do
Like,
the same thing.
and I know they do, but I'm talking about from the perspective of a man. It's like, I want to stop that. I want to start calling it out. And if this is some sort of platform where we can start changing that culture too, because I love marriage. I literally said in the barbershop the other day, they're like, oh, they're like complaining about their wives. And I looked over, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't relate. And it kind of got crickets. And there was another one singular guy across the barbershop goes, I'm right there with you. He goes, I love my wife. She's great. And it shut everyone else up in the room because no one had nothing to complain about. But it was one of those things. It's like, why are we spreading that negativity? Because it spreads fear to the people who aren't married and are single that that's what marriage looks like.
Right. We showcase the worst parts of that experience
Yeah.
because we have a society that validates, it's the pain Olympics.
Yeah.
Right. Like our society gives out medals for dignified suffering in ways that is stupid. Right. Like
Yeah.
there is no intrinsic value to being able to put up with stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like there's long suffering, like the fruit of long suffering. That's not the same thing as dealing with a husband you're upset with for 40 years and complaining about it to everyone who will sit still enough long enough,
Yeah.
right? I agree with you.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's frustrating. And married men, if you happen to be listening to this, all two of you, um,
Speak life.
speak life.
Yeah.
Our words have power, and call out the men, even if they're not in church. Say, we don't need to hear that. Like, and I don't want
Yeah.
to make people not feel heard, but at the same time, it's like, what is positive about the
It was
person you're
like
with?
you had someone, a relative at our wedding, wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, a relative came up to you and was like, "Hey,
Literally, as I'm about to walk down, not me walk down the aisle, but like
like
as I'm about to
you're
walk up to the altar,
right."
this person walked up to me, sincere as can be, and goes, "I have tennis shoes for you in the car if you want to run from this right now."
Crazy.
Like,
And like we
kind
were
of joking, but now looking back, she's divorced. So it's like,
Steven.
like,
Now you just outed somebody.
I don't care. So it's one of those things. It's like, it's like, why are we speaking that negativity into people's lives?
Yeah, I think that it's I do think that it's something that our society has really poisoned people against.
Yeah.
Like and I understand if you're a single person who's looking at all of these terrible examples of people and ranting about their marriages, like why would it seem attractive,
Yeah,
right?
it's the same question. Is marriage worth it?
Right.
When we have a culture that says, yes, most of my life when I go home, I don't want to be home. Sure, that sounds terrible.
I had this analogy come to mind. I feel like we're just full of analogies this
That's
time.
okay. I
Yeah.
love analogies.
Okay. So let's imagine that life is like climbing Mount Everest, right? Nobody gets a choice about climbing. Everyone has to climb, right?
I mean, you have a choice to be there, but
No, I'm just saying in this
okay.
hypothetical universe,
Okay.
no
You
one
chose to walk onto that mountain.
no, I get it. In this hypothetical universe, all of us have to climb this mountain.
Okay.
Right? That's humanity. It's living a hard life,
Yeah.
right? It's a race, it's a drag. You have to get up this mountain no matter what.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice about the mountain being there. You have a choice about whether it is easier for you to climb by yourself with no voices in your ear, right? Or to climb with a partner. And you get to choose the kind of partner you climb with.
Yeah.
So we've all seen examples of those couples who didn't make a choice around their values and they didn't do the work and they didn't submit themselves to the process. And I'm not trying to drag anybody through the mud.
I mean, or they got married for the wrong reasons.
Sure. And they're trying to climb Everest with a partner who is literally dragging them back down the mountain, right? That they have to haul up the slope, complaining and whining and crying. And maybe they're taking turns being that one, right?
Sure.
The whole way up. You don't have to choose that kind of climbing partner.
Yeah.
You can choose someone who will encourage you to keep walking, who's going to be, excited, or you can choose to do it by yourself. Maybe another climber occasionally passes by you along the way, but you're going to be your own coach and your own motivator. Some people might choose that, and that is a completely valid choice.
Yeah.
But you don't have a choice about the mountain. You don't have a choice about life being hard.
Yeah. Life is hard.
Christianity is hard, right?
Yeah.
Taking our...
and on top of that, we're choosing to be apostolic.
Yeah.
Which is intentionally saying, hey, we're adding an extra... This mountain is even steeper than most of the world has to climb.
It's not lightly exfoliating the flesh. It's crucifying the flesh, right?
Yeah, narrow is the way.
Right. So the mountain is there. There's no choice about the mountain.
Yeah.
You are climbing one way or another, but you have three options. Climb alone, climb with a partner who makes it harder, climb with a partner who makes it easier. You have options, So I think it's one of those things where I would never judge someone who came to me and said, I really don't think marriage is for me.
Yeah.
I think it takes a deep knowledge of yourself to be able to make that statement and feel really, really solid in that decision. Right.
That's the thing. I think there are people out there that are going to think about this and say, yeah, you know what? I think I can do this by myself. And I say, kudos to you.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think there's a lot of people who are on the fence who have a lot of negative voices around them that they see a lot of pain and they see a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
And people who are not content. And I have to say that, like, challenge that and ask, did they choose good partners?
I also want to say, and I'm not speaking to any particular person because I've heard this from lots of different people. If you grew up in a home where the marriage that was closest to you, I'm going to cry saying this. If you grew up in a home where the marriage that was closest to you was dysfunctional or was broken or was abusive, where the people that were supposed to teach you what loving your partner looks like did not do that, right? If you grew up in an environment where all the couples that you saw were mean to each other and hard on each other and hurtful to each other, I need you to understand that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And just because that was your context does not mean that you will repeat that history. You have a choice.
Yeah.
You are not bound to the model that you were brought up in, right? And I think that a lot of people who kind of sign off on building a relationship because they don't want to go down that road or repeat history are giving away their agency.
Yeah.
You know, one, if you are truly submitting to the process of allowing God to move through you, the Lord will not deliver you into a broken thing, right? Yeah. If you're listening and you're working and you're, you know, like, and I'm not trying to throw anyone who has been in a bad marriage under the bus, right? But you have a choice about who you choose, about the kind of partner you choose, and the criteria that you use to choose them.
Sorry, I'm thinking about Fletcher saying to Lily, you have a choice.
Yeah.
You made that choice or whatever he said.
Even our son is starting to pick up on the choices. Yeah. You have human agency where you get to decide how you are going to live your life.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do it the same way you've seen.
Also, this is a whole nother episode, but if you were raised in that environment that she talked about, it'd probably be a good idea to go to counseling.
Yes.
And going to counseling is going to have to be an episode that we need to talk about.
Yeah, we have more stuff coming on that because we actually have some cool partnership opportunities that are percolating on that.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about it as a segue, but yeah, that's true.
Stay tuned. Yeah, it's true because the family that built us is a big part of our perception of what we want and what we think we need. So you do not have to choose a life that looks like where you came from. Both of us have examples of marriages in our families that, like, we knew coming in were not what we wanted. Yeah. You know? And
there are parts of it that we did.
Sure.
But also parts of it that we didn't.
Right. And, you know, I think, like, we made the very intentional decision that our children would not take from our marriage what we took from the marriages around us.
Yeah.
You know, you get to do that too. So, is marriage worth it? I think for many people, yes. Not for everyone.
Yeah.
Only you can make that value judgment. Nobody else gets to do the calculus for you.
I think we should end this episode with you saying, repeating what you said in that most recent reel you threw up there today or yesterday. I think it was yesterday.
Yeah. So I had this thought that we pray about dating wrong. Mm-hmm. Because we pray over our list that we've developed, right? Like we say, God, I want someone who's like this, who's like this, who's like this. Bring this person to me. And we put our search in the hands of God. We delegate the task of finding to him, which is not what Scripture says to do. Scripture says that we seek, right? But he who findeth a wife findeth a good thing, but whatever. We delegate that to the Lord. And instead what we should be doing is taking our search criteria to him and saying, God, here are all the things, here's the list of what I've put together in my humanity. And it's not perfect because I'm not perfect. And my perception of what I need is broken from the family that I grew up in and from all of the things that are wrong about how I view things and because of my own pride and my own issues. Instead of saying, God, take away my search and do it for me, say, Lord, take my search criteria and change them. Change what I'm looking for to be the kind of person who will help me live more like you.
Yeah.
take the criteria that I have set for my partner and alter them to better fit your will and your plan in my life.
Yeah.
And then I think this is equally important, train my eyes to recognize those things in other people.
Yeah.
And bring those hidden things to light that I would pass by. Because there are incredible people around us all the time that we sometimes miss because we're so fixated on the list that we developed in our, fleshly, lustful, carnal human minds.
Traumatized too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
a lot of times we're picking these lists based off of our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times our experiences are inherently flawed.
Yeah.
And so we're saying, hey, I am not going to do this. I'm going to choose this. When Jesus is like, hey, this isn't necessarily a complete picture of a partner I want you to have.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there's one specific person out there for you, by the way. But it's taking that list and saying, hey, God, purify my motives and help me see the person that would help me be more like Christ.
Yeah. The climbing partner.
Yeah.
Who will be able to uniquely motivate me to reach the summit. Right.
Yeah.
And I think if we did that, it would change how we interacted with people.
Yeah.
I think it would make our dating interactions much more respectful.
Yeah.
I think it would help us to treat each other with brotherly kindness in whatever dating interactions we had, right?
I think that would be what dating like an apostolic would look like.
I think it would be big. Yeah.
I think that'd be a big first step.
Yeah. So if you're the kind of person who has a list, and I have seen actual lists, physical lists.
Yeah. You've seen novels.
I have. And nothing against writing down what you want. I think that we're told, if you tell Jesus what you want, you pray over it in faith, he'll deliver.
Yeah.
What if you want the wrong thing?
Yeah.
Or what if you don't want the thing you really need?
Yeah. I have to tell my kids all the time. They're like, I need this. I'm like, you want that.
Yeah. It's so funny. Anyway, so yeah, I think that marriage does not have to be for everyone, but I think for most people who, want that human connection and want to live out all those different parts of their humanity, it is a really good gig.
Yeah.
When you pick a good partner, it's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone lie to you and tell you otherwise.
Don't listen to the naysayers.
Yeah. I'm proud of you for saying that in the barbershop the other day.
Oh, yeah. Bunch of old, crotchety old men.
I can imagine. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to just hear the pens drop.
Yeah, I'm hearing this and I'm like, oh gosh, this is awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, sorry, I can't relate.
And is there nothing more beautiful than seeing the opposite? When you see an older guy who's just like, I love my wife.
Yeah.
I
know.
It's just amazing, right?
I'm like, yeah. Jeez.
There's nothing like a couple that's done 40 or 50 years of life together who are still in love and doing life together. It just makes it for me,
Yeah.
That'll be us one day, babe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not the complaining in a barbershop.
Not complaining in a barbershop, no.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. But hey.
Hey.
I love you.
I love you too.
I chose a good climbing partner.
You sure did. It's mutual. Yeah. Not in real life, though. In real life, I'm very bad at climbing things. And I complain quite a bit.
Grab the right rock. And you're like, oh.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
Sorry, she's really bad with her left and right.
We talked about this.
I know. I'm just telling the people that are just listening to this episode.
Okay. Anyway. I don't think we have any big announcements right now, except that, again, Singles at Sea, February. I just talked to someone. This is great. I talked to a new client who lives in the snowy north, in the Midwest. And she goes on a cruise every February. That is her gift to herself every year, is a cruise in February, because that is the worst possible time to live in that part of the country.
Okay.
Just devastatingly cold. And every year she comes down and goes on a cruise.
Nice.
And I'm like, synchrony cruise.
Yeah.
Could be a thing. So if you live in the land of the cold and snowy north, I know right now the weather's nice and right now it's sunny and beautiful, but just remember, in February, it's going to be cold and dark and horrible and sad. And the Caribbean will be a lovely place to spend a week with, or a few days.
Yeah.
It's not a week. It's 3 days. But come down and hang out for 3 days
I mean, you can
with,
stay for a week. You'll get kicked out the boat.
yeah. Anyway, come hang out, come to Florida, get on the ship with us.
Yeah.
We're going to have a great time. It's going to be really fun. Check the description for info about that.
Yep.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye.